American Aquarium are back with a new album. Chicamacomico may be a mouthful, but it's well worth a listen. Here's bandleader BJ Barham to talk about making a very personal record about loss with a band that loves to rock.
The way the singer was singing, my heart was connected, I was hypnotized.
And how is it out on the road these days?
It's good to be back. It's still different than it was before. You know, I think it always will be. But it's good to be back. We did a little bit of touring last year, and it was just not the same. It was
right.
Probably half the fan base was still very weary about getting back out. And it seems like this summer, I'd say about 95% people are back.
Cool.
There's still some folks that don't feel comfortable, and
yeah,
that's why we offer live streams as many times as we can, just to, so they can satiate that need to hear live music and not leave their house.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're playing Americana Fest in Nashville in September, right?
Yeah, we'll be back there this year.
I'm going to that. I'm very excited.
Awesome.
Never been, so I'll see you. I get to see you finally.
It is crazy.
Is it good?
It's a pretty crazy week. It's always pretty hectic, but I mean that in a really great way.
So you got a new album out, Chicamacomico.
You nailed it. Good job.
Well, it does help being American a little bit.
Yeah. Most people I've been doing the press for, it's worse than a tongue twister. Like, everybody's just like, I don't know how to say this. I'm not even going to try.
Right. No, I practiced a little bit beforehand. So,
awesome.
So tell us a little bit. So you must have thought about that title, not only making it the title of the song, but of the album, and it must mean something to you in that respect.
Try to find that piece of us we lost all those years ago, out on the sinking sands of Chicamacomico.
Yeah, so I wrote the record on North Hatteras Island at the Outer Banks of North Carolina. For those that aren't super familiar with North Carolina geography, there's a chain of islands that kind of surrounds the coast of North Carolina. We call it the Outer Banks. One of the most beautiful parts of the state. It's a real treasure. And it's kind of one of the only connective barrier islands in North America. But on North Hatteras Island, there used to be a place called Chicamacomico. It now is modern day. It's called Rodanthe, North Carolina. But Chicamacomico was there. It's the Algonquin word for sinking sand. The sand on the beach is very weird. It's almost like quicksand, but not like deadly or anything. It's just like when you step in it, the weight takes you under.
Right.
And it's the Algonquins are the ones that settled that territory, and so it kept that name up until the 60s and 70s. And then the United States Postal Service is actually the one that petitioned to change the name of the town because it was too hard to write and say.
Right.
But what I always find funny is they changed it to Rodanthe, which is equally hard to write and say.
Yeah, I have no idea how that would be spelled.
But I wrote the record there, is how it got the title. I wrote the record in Rodanthe. The last couple records, I've been very fortunate to be able to kind of take these writing retreats,
right,
with my family, and I write all day, and then at night I get to be a dad. But we spent the winter out on the coast of North Carolina, and so when you think of a beach town, you think of hustle and bustle and the summertime, and sunbathers and ice cream, and if you go there in February, it's quite the opposite. It's a ghost town. There's nobody there. Nobody lives there year round.
Right.
It's very much like a 3-month town. Like from Memorial Day to Labor Day, it's pretty busy, and then other than that, it's an empty town.
Yeah.
And so it really helped listening to the subject matter of this record. It's a record about loss. It's a record about suicide and miscarriage and death. And it's not a fun-going summer beach record.
No, definitely not.
It's a February ghost town beach record.
Uh-huh.
And I felt like the sense of place was all over this record.
So did you know that you were going to make that kind of record when you started, or did it just happen?
I knew what the subject matter was going to be. I didn't know how the final product was going to turn out. Because I've got plenty of sad songs that are upbeat and fun.
Sure.
And at the root of them. I think that kind of dichotomy is what our band is kind of built on, is really depressing lyrics, but you can dance to them, and
Right.
you can, like, you're singing along to them until it hits you what you're singing along to.
Yeah.
But with this record, we approach this record in more of a folky sense. We served the song on this one. We weren't trying to make the song fit into any kind of square hole.
Yep.
It was, we let the song dictate how the arrangement was going to be, and the songs are very heavy and very lyric forward. I feel like, and a lot of fans, I think, agree with me. I think this is the most to see the maturation of my writing in the course of the last 10 years has been kind of fun to watch for me. It's just pulling myself outside of it and looking at the work itself. It's been kind of neat, but this is kind of the penultimate record for me as far as a songwriter goes. Like,
right.
If somebody asks what's the best, what do you think your best songs are, I'd give them probably 5 of these songs off this record. It's like songs like The First Year and Chicamacomico, Waking Up the Echoes, songs like that tackle real life stress and trauma and loss. I didn't want to church them up with, a really kind of the barroom bravado that we're kind of known for.
Right.
I wanted it to be very plaintive. I wanted it to be very direct. I didn't want your mind to take, I never wanted you to take your eye off the lyrics. I never wanted you to lose focus on a guitar solo.
Yeah.
I wanted the story and the narrative to be very much front and center the entire time.
Yep.
Because I think that's what makes it such a heavy record, is you're not allowed moments to breathe in a lot of this. There's not a lot of musical interludes. There's not a lot of guitar solos to kind of refresh your mind, or like
right.
a palate cleanse. There's no palate cleansers. It's just heavy, 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 heavy. Yeah. And I think it makes you look at it. It kind of grabs you by the face. It's like, no, you're going to look this head on, even though you don't want to look this head on. Yeah. Which is very much how writing the record was for me. I'm writing about a lot of stuff that would have been easy to kind of either make it more of a fictional story. But I stayed right in it. I looked it in the eye, gave it a name. And I think doing that took away a lot of the power that had over me the last couple of years. That kind of loss. When you're processing that kind of loss, if you don't talk about it and you don't get those emotions out, it can be overwhelming. And so I feel like as a writer, I tried to stay in the middle of the storm as much as I could and write very first person. And I think we forced the listener to do the same based on the arrangements.
Right. Well, I noticed that you got Brad Cook help producing this record, and he did produce your solo album. And a lot of folks have kind of alluded to the fact that this sounds like a solo album as well. So does one thing have anything to do with the other? Does Brad's involvement? And to me, it just feels like it's the content of the songs, it's songwriting that makes it that way.
I think saying it sounds like the solo record because that we have the same producer is an easy out.
Yeah.
Brad also did Wolves,
right,
of ours, which is a big rock record. It's Wolves, it's Losing Side of 25. It's, it's a family it's a big record. Wichita Falls, like that record was Brad Cook too. So I have to remind people, it's like Brad isn't just the acoustic plaintive folk guy.
Yeah.
He also did one of our biggest rock records. But I do hear the similarities. I do hear people's observations when they say, oh man, this sounds like a solo record, because it's a very personal record. I understand that people walk away from this being like, wow, that was a look inside of that writer. Very much so. And I think it's a good thing. The American Aquarium canon does not have a record like this. We don't have a record that sounds like this as a band. Yep. So I think of all the things I'm going to make a quiet, folk record on, this was going to be it. This was the somber record about a lot of somber topics.
Right.
I'm sure the next record will be guns blazing, jumping out, but this record needed to be made for my sanity.
So when you bring this concept to the rest of the band, is there much discussion about it? Were they?
I'm really lucky to have a band that understands what it means to serve a song. We all serve at the altar of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. we all, we all understand, Mike Campbell is one of the greatest guitar players ever to live.
Yep.
But he never shreds. He's not a shredding guitar. He always plays these really melodic, beautiful things behind Tom's songs.
Yep.
And I think that's what we've always strived to do is, does this part musically add to the song? If it's yes, it stays. If it's no, we tend to take it away and try something new. And especially in Chicamacomico, I think every musical moment, whether it be a solo or an interlude or a coda, I think every single one of those music moments serves the song in such a beautiful way.
Right.
Whether it's offering a touch of relief in a really heavy moment, or whether it's just like re-emphasizing certain themes. I think the band, I think it's harder for a band to make a quiet record like this than it is just to go out there and be, okay, guys, we're all going to be playing in G, try to keep up, Back to the Future style.
Yeah.
I think it's, I told the boys after this, I'm like, I can't, the amount of restraint they showed on this record was truly admirable. And they understood, they understood the assignment immediately. They were, they're like, this is not a bombastic record. This is I wanted this record to feel like I was talking to a person. You were talking to a friend, one-on-one, and he was opening up to you about a lot of what has happened to him over the last 2 years. And I think we did that. I don't think there's a single musical moment that pulls you out of the story.
Right.
And for that, hats off to the band. I don't think there's many bands in our genre that can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That can play Lamentations, turn around, record 2 90s country cover records,
right,
and then turn around and make one of the heaviest folk records of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not, and that's the same lineup. That's the same 6 guys in one room. And I think that speaks volumes to how diverse the band is, how adaptive they can be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's almost like a less is more kind of attitude when listening to this particular album. I mean, for my own personal, when the first time I heard it, I was like, where's the band? What's going on here? It doesn't sound like Lamentations. And then you'd hear a little bit of a pedal steel in one of the songs and you go, and it almost amplified it because it was being used so sparingly. And the same with little background vocals or harmonies and things like that. And so I guess that's what you're saying is that, to be able to do that but have you got much reaction from hardcore fans about the album? What were the
fan base has been extremely supportive.
Yeah.
And I think that they, we don't have any records that sound the same as its predecessor. Like you can go back and listen. If you line up Burn, Flicker, Die, Wolves, Lamentations, and Chicamacomico, it almost sounds like 4 different bands are backing the same singer.
Yeah.
And that's what we've always strived. Like there's plenty of bands that find some form of success and just keep putting out records that sound like that. I never want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever become that guy, I don't think I want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. I like that every record sounds completely different. And a lot of our hardcore fans have come to love the fact that it's a ride and it does this. There's plenty of bands that you can go and see and they'll do this for their entire career. They'll give you the same exact thing.
Yep.
formula, it's just a formula for them. Does it have a guitar solos? Does it have, whatever? And for us, we try to stretch what our 6-piece band can do. So I think the reason people are really liking this record is because how much it resonates, how much how honest these songs are, and how much every single person has went through something similar.
Yep.
Even if they haven't lost their mother, they've lost someone close to them that they can apply that song to.
Yeah.
And I think that's why our fan base has taken to this record so much, is because it's almost like a diary come to life for them. Like you can hear it and it's almost like somebody put words to your problems. Somebody put words to your loss, to your trauma. And I think that's why people that love Lamentations also love this record.
Yeah.
Is because, I think that's the one, constant throughout our last few records is kind of that brutal honesty that I think a lot of our fans have come to expect from me. And on that front, I don't think I let anybody down on this record. I think they got probably more honesty than they were bargaining for with this record. But that goes back, that speaks to the beauty of our fan base. Our fan base has been so supportive day one. We've crowdfunded the last 6 records. Like, our fans are ride or die, And
Yeah.
some of them might not like this record as much as Burn, Flicker, Die, Lamentations, Wolves, but they also understands that in the whole collection of my discography, I have 16 records now in 16 years. They understand that this has a very specific place in my life.
Yep.
If you look at records like Chronological Snapshots, this Polaroid goes right up there as coming out of a pandemic record.
Yep. I love the fact that you end the album with All I Needed, and the video is, I mean, it's just the perfect kind of summation. And okay, we got through this together. Here we are, and you wipe a tear, and off you ride into the sunset.
It was a hook, it was a line, it was a savior in three-quarter time. I was out there losing my mind when all I needed was a song. I was out there losing my mind when all I needed was a song.
The last couple records, especially Lamentations as well, because Lamentations we ended with Long Haul, which was also a very kind of hopeful, optimistic closer.
Yep.
When you're dealing with this much weight, and I'm talking strictly subject matter.
Yep.
I always want to leave the listener as if they're listening to the whole record. When that gets done, I don't want them to be down in the dumps. I want them to be riding pretty high.
Yeah.
And so with Lamentations, we ended on Long Haul, about no matter what life gives you, I'm here for it. I'm sticking with it. I'm not a quitter. I'm sticking with it. And with this record, I wanted people to be reminded that no matter how dire situations seem, there's always a song to get you through those bad situations. And in my head, it could be one of the songs you just heard.
Yeah.
Hopefully one of these songs hits you if your friend just commits suicide, or if you just lost your mother, or if you and your wife are still trying to recover from a miscarriage. The goal is one of these previous 9 songs is that salve, is that ointment you put on the open wound and try to help it heal. And I love the fact that it ends with a reminder of what our band, because it's a lot of people say that's the one song that sounds like American Aquarium.
Right.
Kind of the big, kind of bombastic, almost petty-esque guitar. And it's, you know, it's just a reminder that like your favorite band's still here. We still do this.
Yeah.
We just had to make this record. And hopefully people got that. If they didn't, they'll be back for the next record.
Fair enough. Now, stepping aside from the music a little bit, and when just watching events unfold in the U.S. from outside of the U.S. is just like mind-blowing sometimes. I mean, every day we wake up and it's like, what's next? And, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, the whole anti-abortion thing and the mass shootings it's not every day now, it's like every other hour. I mean, how do you, what's your take on what's the state of the nation? I mean, I got to go back there after not being there for 3 years. I'm kind of wary about it.
It's a real troubling moment. Like I said, I have more faith in our country than most.
Right.
I truly believe that there's more good than there is bad. There's a lot of bad right now, and there's a lot of kind of right-wing Christian nationalism kind of rising. You know, as a kid, you know, you always think that separation of church and state is just a given.
Yep.
You know,
that's what they taught us.
And now we're seeing a pretty stacked Christian Supreme Court who is going through and literally cutting almost a century worth of progress. Kind of taking us back to like it wouldn't, you know, the late 1800s. Like it's getting pretty dire here. But there's a lot of people that don't feel that way. And I have to remind people, especially people outside this country, like, how do you get through it? How do you do this? And I'm like, man, there's more, like, you know, Jason Isbell's got a great song. There's more of us than, you know, you got to believe there's more of us than there are them. And, you know, hopefully I feel like American politics, like the voting base has become very complacent over the last 2 decades. My generation doesn't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like it matters. They don't feel like they should vote. And I think people are being reminded what happens when you don't vote. I think people are being reminded. We got that reminder in 2016, but now we're seeing the results of 2016.
Yeah.
We're seeing like what can happen if you just sit one election out. And I think it's, a lot of people look at it negatively. I look at it as a positive step. I look at it as hopefully this refires up every young kid, because there's not many kids under 20 that aren't being progressive or somewhat progressive. They might be moderate, but nobody is like that far right, like that's, and it sucks that that's what a lot of the world is seeing of our country, is kind of these extremists, the rise of the American Taliban, and it sucks, but I have more faith in the majority. And we've proven time and time again, the majority of this country, we've proven it through elections. Bush lost the popular vote his second go round. Trump lost the popular vote. Like, these people aren't winning elections based on the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans don't want it to go in that direction.
Yep.
Through some loopholing and gerrymandering and a lot of antiquated policy. Occasionally you have some of these people slip through into the presidency, which is a shame, because it's not what the country wants. Same way goes for abortion. 80% of the country believes, whether or not they believe it's morally right or wrong, they believe it's a woman's choice to make that decision for herself.
Yep.
And when 80% of the country agrees with something and then the Supreme Court goes and rules against it, it kind of makes you ask, like, are these people really serving us as a body, or are they serving themselves and their own ideology and their own minority? And it's, it's a frustrating time to be here. Like I said, it's, usually it's easy to take up for the country, but it's becoming harder and harder, especially when you get on the phone with other countries. We're considered a powerhouse. We're considered, that we're leading the charge, and we're so backwards on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's a hard conversation to have. I wouldn't be scared to come here. But we've got a lot of work to do. And I think there's a lot of people, myself included, that are willing to do the work, that are willing to use their voice and be a platform for change, for good, for the right side of history. And, as long as we outnumber them, I feel good about the situation.
Very good.
Because just a reminder to folks that, like, the majority of the folks here want a woman to be able to choose. They want anybody to be able to get married to whoever they love.
Yep.
It's a hard time to be an American right now.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it'll be an interesting trip.
I have plenty of friends who give me the old adage, if you don't like it, you can leave. And it's like, that's the opposite. Like, I love it. Like, that's why I want to fix it. That's why I want to stay and make it better. Like, the easy out is leaving.
Yeah.
Staying and fighting for something you believe in is the hard part. And I think that's where, especially, as an American, but not just an American, a Southern American.
Right.
Like, I could have moved anywhere but the South. And been surrounded by people that agree with me at all times. But what good does that do the future generation of the South if I'm not willing to stand up and kind of plant my flag and draw my lines and say, I'm proud to be a Southern American, and I don't think the same way my father, my grandfather, my entire family thought.
Yeah.
It's about changing history, and not just running from it.
Cool. Very good. Well, are you thinking about your next record?
Always. Already started writing. You got to think, this record's been done since last November.
That's what I'm thinking.
I've kind of, I'm constantly in that state of writing. Always want to be writing. So I'll probably have it done by spring of next year. We'll record it sometime next summer, maybe. Yep. I try to keep myself on a 2-year, every 2 years, put a new record out. I put 5 records out in the last 2 years. So I've kind of outdid myself.
Take a little break, a breather.
I might take a little break, but I look at that. I'm becoming a father, getting married, going through the things we're going through in this country. There's always fodder for the next record. There's always fodder for writing.
Yep.
There's always stuff that inspires me, and I'm lucky to kind of be in that kind of golden era of my life. I'm in my late 30s, so I've seen enough, but I've still got a lot more to see.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to where I kind of have perspective over stuff, so I can go back and still write songs about past things, but I can do so with a bird's eye view instead of writing straight in front of it. So I'm constantly inspired. I'm constantly writing down one-liners. I'm constantly coming up with song ideas. So
Fantastic.
this is what I do for a living. So I can almost guarantee there's something coming down the pipe.
I'm sure there will be. Well, I'm very excited to be seeing you guys finally in September in Nashville. So
I can't wait.
This is going to be amazing. Thank you for spending time again talking to me like you have. You've been very generous, and thank you for making the record.
For sure. Thanks a ton for talking to me.
Hey, have a good day.
We'll see you, brother.
Bye-bye.